Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics, back with a year in words, and this time it's for April. And of course, that's the beginning of spring, and we just love spring. Everything's starting to bloom. The snow is hopefully melted. If you live in a snowy part of the country, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes there's lingering snow, but those tulips are persistent, and those crocus are trying to push their way into the world, and we be able to celebrate the wonderful season of spring. So today we're going to be focused very much on the piecing here. We're getting to learn how to make a tulip block. So whether you're in our club or grabbing one of our few kits that are kind of left over, or maybe you just want to learn how to make the tulip block and be able to incorporate that into a quilt, maybe a pillow. It's a fun thing to learn how to do. There'll be a download for that. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already done that, and share it with a friend. It's always fun to share good news. So what I did, just to save us a little bit of time, is I taped together our applique diagrams, and of course I cut my background to the proper size, 7.5 by 25.5. We kind of talked about that in our last video, and that's for that larger creative grid, 8.5 inch wide by 24.5 inch wide ruler is so nice, so that when you make that initial cut of that beautiful white with a shimmer dot background, or whatever maybe background you, if you're just maybe kind of using something from your own stash, maybe you're gaining some inspiration and want to give this a shot of with your own fabric, awesome. Whatever you're doing there, when you're cutting a 7.5 inch wide piece of fabric, it's nice to be able to use a ruler that's that wide or wider. That way you can always have a great visual, and you can find 7.5 on the larger ruler. So I love that. So we laid everything out using our big wafer 3 light box. And of course, when that's illuminated, in fact, the switch is out of my reach right now, but when that's illuminated and I have my assembly diagram, I can see exactly where everything goes. And I love that precision of laying my fabric on, positioning everything just so. I, of course, would have my wool pressing mat adjacent to that, sliding it off to the side and ironing that down with a medium heat. What makes this month a little bit different is we get to incorporate just a touch of hand embroidery. So I think with that in mind, since we are kind of talking about the applique, is once you have that laid out, this is the light box here where I can see just a touch of where that little bit of hand embroidery goes. You have that black embroidery floss in your kit. I'm just going to draw that on right now. And you know what, while we're here, while we're talking about this, I'm just going to dive into that, and we'll do the piecing in the end. That's the much more involved part of this process. Now I would, if this was me doing this project, I would, before I even touch the hand embroidery, go ahead and grab my favorite thread out of this beautiful, the 50 weight thread set. This is for the all 12 programs, all 12 of those. So whether you're in the club, this is obviously a great choice, or you're going to be doing a lot of the kits, maybe you're buying those individual, another great choice. And of course you'll have that to add to your, your array of thread you have in your sewing room. I would stitch all of that applique down first and then go back and do the hand embroidery, only because I want to have everything already secured and stitched down, because I'm going to be kind of handling and manipulating my fabric right now, including my applique, to gain access to being able to do the hand embroidery. So that's typically my approach, but these are not sewn down, but still 2 strands, there's a knot in the end. We're going to do a simple back stitch starting at the base of the head of our little butterfly here. We're going to take some very small stitches. I'm trying to keep my head out of the way. So I'm going to go down a short distance, I should say come up a short distance away, and now travel back toward myself. That's why they call this a back stitch. Going down into the needle from which I had just came, and go down, travel just a short distance downstream, and come up, Now here's another option for you. Let's say you're like, I don't really like to do hand embroidery. I'm not comfortable doing hand embroidery. You can grab a micron pen or any permanent marking pen that's in black and simply draw these antennas in. This is just an option for you. And it's certainly not a deal breaker if you don't want to do it and you want to draw that in instead. Just know that if you're going to use a permanent marker, of course, it's permanent. So you want to be right on the line, and that's where the assistance of a light box is really wonderful. So you get it right where you want it. Okay, so we just travel around the corner here. Notice I'm taking very small stitches because we're creating the illusion of a turn, because think of it, we're only doing straight stitches. We have no ability to make an arc. And with short stitches, just turning ever so slightly, we're able to make that illusion that our stitches are curving. Now I would go ahead and just stitch the one all the way on, this one as well, traveling back, and then of course you'll tie off. So that's how we're going to work with the applique side of our block. And remember, don't trim it down yet. Wait until the piece side of the project is done and what that will measure when your 3 tulips are joined, and what that measures, and then trim that to match. Okay, so let's get that over to the side. We'll just kind of tuck that away. Let's talk about this block. Lots of pieces. This time I felt it very necessary to go ahead and label things because some of them were very close and I was going to get confused. Whenever you have that need, these are just a little sticker I grabbed, and you can see I kind of just ripped some of it off, and just that way I don't get lost, and it's just a fun process of being able to make the block. This tulip block will finish at 4 by 8, and you can imagine, you know, if you have these all in a row, you can make a cute little pillow. It'd be a fun almost border. It'd be a really interesting border around the spring quilt, or of course on this actual wall hanging. So how do we make this? So let's jump into our tulip assembly. And right here I'll just turn to this page. We'll get this out of the way, and we're just going to be following the instructions. This is a free download, by the way, of how to make this block. Not the applique, but the block, or how to make the block will be a free download. So you don't need to worry about any of the measurements right here. That'll be in your free download. So we'll just focus on piece A here, which will be making the orange tulip. And right away, we have a piece B, and you can see that they're drawing a line on the wrong side of that. I'll grab a straight, just a ruler. And if you look, we're going to be doing this here, again on the opposite side, down in this corner, and then again on these 2 halves. So I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 per tulip. So I'll go ahead and mark that. Now I'm going to mark just a couple. I want to show you another cool Creative Grid tool. Again, I love to show you options for you to consider. You can say, yes, I love that, or no, thank you, but I always want to expose you to other possibilities. I'm going to do one of these blocks by drawing the line, and the other block, or the other half of the block, I'm going to use a corner clipper. That may be a brand new product to you, and I'll show you how it works. You can decide what technique you want to use and proceed. All right, for this one, we'll go ahead and we'll sew this here, and we're going to end up sewing. So we've got this half, so that they're doing this upper portion. In fact, let's just go sew that. Let's just take it one step at a time. I don't get ahead of anything. We're not in a hurry. We're doing our favorite hobby here together. So we're just going to go corner to corner on our drawn line. And we'll press to the outside. I always like to press before I trim. That's my habit, because if I got off, I would rather seam rip when this thing is all intact than to cut it away and find something went amiss. So I like to press, make sure I'm happy with what I'm seeing. And then once I am happy and say, yeah, that looks good. There's no weird curve to that. I didn't go too shallow or too deep on my 1/4" seam allowance. I will go ahead and trim that away. So that's our first step. Notice how we take another one of those, and now we'll come on this side. Make sure this is pressed all the way out. It's very easy for this to kind of roll back a little bit if you didn't press it strongly to the outside, and take a little bit of a tuck in here. So I'm going to make sure that is sizing. Reminds me, intricate piecing, size your fabrics. It's going to be way easier to have accurate piecing with that sizing. And I put that can out there to remind myself. I had already added sizing to my fabric, but it is a great tool to kind of stabilize this and make piecing more accurate. Stabilize your fabric. Okay, so that's pressed all the way out, and let's again sew corner to corner. All right, let's check that, see if we're happy. I think that looks good. I'm happy with what I'm seeing, so let's go ahead and trim that away. Okay, now looking, so we're here. Now we're in this bottom corner down there. You can see that. I'll go just quickly do that. We'll come back. I'll have that pressed to the outside. Okay, so we have the left side of our tulip done. Quick, right? That was fun. That was easy. Now with the other side, I'm going to use something called a corner clipper. It does the same thing, except the only difference is you don't need to worry about drawing the line. You're kind of just taking care of that step right away. So let's look. We're now down to here. Basically, this now right half of that, we're going to prepare the top the same way we did before. So let's go ahead. We have our right side together, and just so that normally you would, right, normally there'd be this drawn line here. That's what we would normally do. And you can still do that, by the way. This is just an option. This is the part that's going to be trimmed away. By using the corner clipper, and in the very beginning, sometimes people need that kind of, like this is the part being trimmed away. When I lay this on here, see that line that goes corner to corner? I have alignment here, 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 and diagonally. And you want to have that exactly in your corner. Just like this. Now, I'm going to take this to my machine. I'm going to sew. And now I press to the outside. So the precision of this, I love it. I love my corner clipper. I use it all the time. I never thought I would because I'm like, nope, I'm old school. Well, I'm figuring out that sometimes being open to new ideas is probably in my best interest. This is in that department. So let's try that again. So we have our shimmery side down. We're now over here. We're doing this one. So instead of having that drawn line, and sewing that and trimming this away, let's just place our tool, our corner clipper, and we know that what's to our right is going to be gone. It's out here, right? Well, now I'm just going to have my nice alignment, trim this away. If you want to put a pin down there, by all means do it. Let's go to the machine and we'll sew again. And then our last one, let's see here, that's going to be down in this corner. Let me just confirm, yes. So what I always think about is it's this part over there that's going to be trimmed away. So turn your shape so that it's always over there. That's the quickest way to kind of acclimate. And let's go sew that, and then we will sew our two halves together, and we'll have the upper portion of our tulip done, and then we'll be focused on the stems. Let me get that all lined up. So isn't that a great tool? If you do a lot of things where you're clipping a corner, this is fantastic. Some people like to make flying geese with that technique where it's a square, they have the line drawn. If that's your preferred flying geese technique, this is an invaluable addition to your sewing room. Save you a lot of time, and I think really adds to the accuracy. Okay, so we have our two halves done. One we did the way we all learned, and now one half we did with a cool new tool from Creative Grid. But however you get that accomplished, now the two halves come together. So I'm going to just get rid of some of these extra threads here. And of course, we want that point where they join up to be very accurate and be kind of just that perfect V right there. So you're going to take a look, and you're really focused on that place. In fact, when I did this one initially, I seam ripped it. They were off just like, I don't know, a 32nd of an inch. It drove me crazy. I'm like, no, I don't want to show that on the video. And you know what? It was a pinning thing. I just didn't pin very well, and they just shifted because I've got two seams. I do not have interlocking seams here, which I really like. So I've got this bump here, a little bit of a bump. So that kind of did not help, but just the way that this block is built in this particular situation, you end up with a lot of seams right there. All right. Okay, here's our moment. How'd we do? How'd I do, I guess? Hey, I'm happy with that. You know, I can live with that. But hey, if it's not right, we grab that seam ripper and we just seam rip and try again. Now here, I like to go ahead and press this open and evenly distribute out that bulk left and right. So now we have the upper portion of our tulip done, and we can move on to the bottom portion. Let's see here. Okay, so that part's done. So let's go ahead and we're going to turn that page, and let's look at, you know, we'll be looking at this. So we've got this part done. So we're kind of seeing this side by side. Now I believe that's 4.5. Let me see if that's a 4.5 inch portion or the upper portion. It is 4.5. So we got to use the 4.5 inch ruler last month in the Year in Words wall hanging for March when we were doing the pinwheels, and it was nice to be able to square those up because we had upsized those. And so I kind of have that ruler handy in the video room, and I'm like, hey, cool, I get to be able to, you know, just confirm that measurement with my 4.5. So I kind of have that one handy. Okay, that's done. So let's look at this part right here, and you can see that's where a lot of this is coming into play. Some of these are very similar in size, and you could see where I could easily grab the wrong size of fabric. So for our piece C and D, we'll grab one of each and draw the line again. Shimmer side down. Oh, this is yet another actually opportunity to use the corner clipper. So it's showing us to draw the line. We can, in fact, I'll show you again. I will demonstrate to you again the option of just a ruler or straight edge, corner to corner. We're going to draw that, and that's going to be actually here. And we're going to make actually another one. So I might as well just do that with this one though. I will use the corner clipper. So you're seeing it once again. Where I'll bring this out. Make sure these are perfectly stacked on top of each other. And that's instead of my drawn line, as we know. We'll cut that and pin that. Two different approaches. Whatever makes you comfortable. Okay, let's sew on that line. Here, I'm just now sewing the little kind of edge of my presser foot is just going to ride along that. So you'll see for the one where I drew the line, we have to take those extra steps of, and I believe they want us to press toward the green in our pattern. Let's see here. Step 3, step 4. Yes, press toward the green. So we're going to press that way. Remember, we want to check it first. Make sure we're happy with what we're seeing. I have a nice straight edge. I don't have bowing. That's what I'm looking for. And people are like, what are you looking for? That it doesn't have an arc to it, that it's a nice straight edge. I didn't have any curving to my sewing. And if I'm happy with what I'm seeing, I open that back up, put that 1/4 inch line on there and trim away. On this one, just going to warm that up and just press to the green. So I've kind of saved myself some steps and added some precision. Those are great things in my book. Precision and saving steps are good things. Okay, so 2 ways to get the same thing accomplished. Pick your favorite. Okay, that's done. So now that I have one of these half square triangles, I have my D is my green. Now we'll put a piece E on the bottom of that. Just like that. And I'm definitely going to go ahead. Actually, you know, if I put it here like this, as my presser foot comes, it's going to want to roll that seam. So I'm actually going to flip that over like this. I think about those things now, whereas as a young quilter, I didn't think about any of that stuff. I didn't know any of that stuff. So I do think about that now. Let's sew another 1/4 inch. So you can now imagine that if we're trying to make a decision, where does this seam, I'm just opening this up, where does it's already tilting that way because I have a seam here and nothing there. I am going to go with that. Go with the flow, as they say. So we will go with that and press in that direction. So that's kind of this half here. And then our next step will be to create over here this, and we'll sew the F to the top of that, also the G to the bottom of that. So I'll go ahead and do that just to save you the time here. I'll go ahead and do that off camera, and when I come back I will show you how I'm going to press that. Okay, so again, as we pull this kind of open, these seams are wanting to be going away from the middle where that bulk is, the seams. So I'm going to go with that. Sometimes you can't always go with that because you're looking for an interlocking seam or the way something's going to come together later. In this instance, go ahead and go with that. So that is now the right half. This is my left half, and this is what's in my middle now. So we'll go ahead. I will sew this 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I press those seams toward the middle again because I've got all of this, and the seams are like, please, not toward me, go toward the middle, so I did. So I'll go ahead and sew that together, and then I want to show you how I lined this up because of the way the seams, it's a different sight picture than you maybe are seeing. So I'll go ahead and sew this 1/4 inch here, press toward the green, sew this to the other side, press toward the green. So now I have this part put together, and now we'll join our two sections. So of course, top to bottom. So as I place these right side together, I'm going to put the top of the tulip up on the top, and I'm going to sew on this side because I have a chance, if this was on the bottom and I sewed this, of that seam rolling over on me underneath as it passes through the feed dogs. So for that reason, I'm going to have that seam that's pressed open on the top with me. So aligning this, I can see that that open seam is going to split the width of that stem. So we'll just put a couple pins in here, and we are so close to finishing that block. I'm going to put a pin right down that seam so that doesn't move off of where I want it to hit, matching up with that stem. Well, I've got 2 pins at once. Okay, one more 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we are going to be done with our block. Look at that. Now as I open this up, this feels like this seam wants to go upward. That's great. It can go up, down, or open, whatever you feel is best. There's really your preference. Let's see how our block came out. And you know, you really, except for just a little bit of sewing that I did, just for that, because it's very repetitive, this was pretty much made in real time. And this came together quickly, and you're only making 3 of the tulips. So isn't that just a fun block there? So you're making a total of 3. I have another one that I get to do. And just like before, you're stacking them top to bottom, sewing those together, measuring whatever that is. And like we said, then you go ahead and trim down your applique piece to that exact size, join them, put your backing quilt as you prefer. We'll do some close-up photography so you can get some ideas for quilting and bind your project, and you're on your way. So thank you for giving me a part of your day where we can learn how to make the beautiful tulip block, have some fun piecing of this fun project for spring. I will see you next month where we're already on A Year in Words for the month of May. I'll see you soon.